So after a little bit of a break to complete a couple of other kits for other things that are happening on the channel, we are now back on the Scharnhorst, and I fancied a little change of pace from the forward superstructure, so I thought it'd be nice to tackle the main guns because, well, not many parts in the main guns, is there? Okay, well, it's perhaps more complicated than I assumed. Let's just talk about the kit parts. The kit parts are actually really, really nice. The turret top has got lots of rivet detail. It looks really good. And then we've got a nicely fitting base in there. And we've got some posable guns shown without the blast bags. You can't pose them with the blast bags. And then we've got the viewing ports here, which go on the side, and they're all modelled closed, but they're good representations of what they should be. So that's all good. And then in the instructions, we have some photo etch to add to that. So that gets you the basic gun, and then there are some differences between the three guns which we then have to mess around with. So more photo etch and various other bits and pieces that get added to some of the guns. There's slight differences between all three sets of the guns, but even includes some photo etch to allow you to have the little doors open and things like that. So that's all nice. And then when we consider the MK1 set, they also have photo etch. They have some nice detailing which will improve the accuracy of these guns and blast bags. So if we look at the turned aluminium guns, let me just get you in a bit closer if I get my instructions out of the way. So if we look at the turned aluminium guns and I compare them to the anatomy of the ship, so there we go, we can see the steps are in different places to Trumpeters. The MK1's guns are also a fractionally longer, half a millimetre, quarter of a millimetre, something like that. From my looking at it at the anatomy of the ship, the turned aluminium guns seem to be more accurate. Also, the end of the barrel, from this point here where you've got the step, is thinner, so that's also more accurate. And the opening of the barrel gives you a thinner wall. So obviously that's the limitations of plastic moulding against what you can do with CNC turning. So yeah, it's just a real upgrade. But these have to be mounted into, well, I suppose you could possibly mount them in, if you didn't want to use the blast bags, you could cut this off, mount this onto here, and then that would still be something that you could swivel. But that's not my intention. I like the look of the blast bags, so I'm going to use the blast bags. These just fit nicely onto the blast bags, although I haven't actually fitted them. There you go. So it goes on like that, and then the blast bag is shaped in such a way that it plugs into the opening for the gun. So let's just have a go at that. Well, that doesn't fit at all well, does it? There you go. I wonder if... So the blast bag goes in. So if we do it that way first, and then put the gun through, that seems to be a better way. Because the gun at the back end of the barrel is too wide to go through the opening. There we go. So, yeah, that's the way we'll do it. Although, I might just widen the plastic to make sure that gun is pushed all the way through. But that's what you're going to end up with. You're going to end up with 3 of those. And they look great. So, I had thought... Yeah, see, there's a little lip on here. And that is what is... Yeah, behind that lip, it's a little bit too wide to go through the plastic. So we need to be able to actually modify the plastic to allow that to go through. We'll have to do that very carefully. But yeah, that goes through. Yeah, okay, I see. So yeah, that'll look good. Obviously, it means you can't pose them. But that's okay. I just want to have a look now. Yeah, unfortunately, they've chosen to just sort of cut and paste the template. So all of these blast bags have got the creases in the same place. So that's a little bit of a shame. But we can probably do some painting to change the positions of the creases a little bit with the shadowing and the highlight. So that's my thought. Now, the guns that we are doing, let's talk about what they should look like. So this is what my guns are going to look like. They're going to have the yellow tops. We're going to have the white blast bags, or off-white blast bags. And then we have the dark grey, which is the main theme on this build for Operation Paderborn. So we've got all of this to do. We know we've got the photo etch for this, so it should all be good. One thing that is noticeable, because this is early 43, is that we've got this closed off, so I need to just cross-reference whether that is just to show you what an image of what this looks like, or whether viewports were removed from one of the guns, because in our instructions here all of them have the viewpoints. So even though there's differences, they don't remove the viewpoints. So I need to just check that out by looking at another render of the model. But this is what we're going to achieve. So the barrels are going to be the dark grey, the lower part will be dark grey. It's going to make painting a little bit tricky, because we need to really have the photo etch installed before we paint, so masking off around there will be tricky. I imagine we're going to have some touch up. My thought process is to paint the yellow first, because you generally go with the lighter colour. That means we're then touching up in yellow, whereas if we spray everything the dark grey, then we're touching up in grey, which will be easier. So I might paint everything in the dark grey first, and then we'll go over with the yellow, which means that we'll have to do some more layers, but we're airbrushing this, so we can put it down nice and thin and build up the colour saturation a little bit. It'll also give us the opportunity to do some shading in the background and add a little bit of interest, because we don't want this to be flat and two-dimensional, so we can leave some grey paint on some of these areas, and then have brighter yellows in the centres and what have you, before we do any washes and stuff. So by doing these guns, we can tackle one of the big focal points of the model, and get them out of the way, and probably get some material for you guys to watch a little bit more quickly. So it's going to be really interesting to pull this together. So I've pretty much got everything together with the exception of the kit supplied photo etch, which I need to do, and I haven't got these parts out yet. So we'll do that as a next step. I'm going to build the base gun first, and then we're going to detail them. But let's find this image and just double check these viewing ports. So this is interesting, and why at every stage of the build you should be checking your references. This that you're looking at is images of the primary views of her during Operation Berlin in 1941. And you can see again yellow turret tops, but in the pale grey this time, and you can clearly see that the two forward turrets have both got their viewing wings on. And then when we pad through to February 1942, Operation Cerberus, the front turret has lost those viewing wings. So why that is, I have no idea. Whether she got some damage so they had to remove them, or there was some change in the radar meant that these were no longer necessary. But they've maintained them on Bruno and Caesar guns at the rear. So that's really interesting. So I come to my primary view of Operation Paderborn, which is the one we're modelling, and she does indeed have no forward guns. So that's really interesting, because Trumpeter have designed this model to be as sunk in 1943, and they've got that completely wrong. So yeah, very, very interesting. So having to have a look a bit more closely at what's happening with these guns and the armament. So that means I've got to do some modifications to what's being supplied in the kit. And if I look at my armament again, you can see in the Trumpeter instructions, gun 71 is the one that we're having right at the front, Anton, as she was on the ship. So that means they want us to add these little rainaways, photo etch items there that go on, and then we've got the gun barrel holder there for other armaments, not for this, for holding spares. And when we look at this picture here, we can see the barrel tube there, but there's no rainaway on it, so that shouldn't be added. Yeah, so we do need the little photo etched grab rails. We have kit supplied ones, and we have MK1 supplied ones, but we don't want the rainaways on. And we need to have a plate there. So when you look at this, you've got the plates pretty much there. We've got to remove the mounting point for the vision blocks and then level that up. I don't want to lose that rivet detail. I can replace it if I need to, but let's try not to. We do have dimples for... Yeah, they're all the same because it's repeated sprues. So there's dimples for the photo etch. So I'm going to have to skim those out as well. Yeah, and then we should be not far off then. The rest of the gun seems to be okay. So we've got more work than I expected, to be honest. So let's start building this lot up. So as I look at the blast bags, cleverly all the connection points from the print process are not on the edge that goes onto the kit, so there's no cleanup needed on any of these parts at all. It's just a case of get them cleaned, get them primed and what have you. So we'll clean these with a little bit of alcohol before we paint them. So no cleanup on those. Turned guns, also no cleanup required on those. So they're ready for paint, so that's good. So that means it's the plastic parts that mainly need to be cleaned up, so that's really good. So we're going to start by just nipping off the main parts of our connection points. There we go. So that's the nubs removed from our sprue gates. And then I'm going to go in with a little flat file. There we go, that's good. And then we've got a little one on this side here. This will interfere with the sit of the upper turret if we don't remove it. Same with that one there. And then we're just going to check the fit. Yeah, that's all good. And then our blast bags should all plug in. I'm seeing something interesting with the blast bags. Let's just put those in and see if I can show you. Okay, so the blast bags don't actually fit properly. So don't know if you can see that on the camera, but underneath the bottom of the bag there is a gap. That gap shouldn't be there, and that's because the blast bag is sitting a bit high. So we're probably, as we've got, just trying to see, no, we don't have rivet detail on there. If we take that off the top, the moulding on the top of the turret, that's probably going to help it sit down. So let's get red. I'm just going to, it's crude but it works. I'm just going to cover this rivet with my fingernail because I don't want to lose it, and we're just going to take that back. What we don't want to do is change the profile at the front, well, at least until we know whether we're gonna have to or not. Yeah, that solves the problem. So you can see how the gap has gone now completely. So we're going to need to remove the detail off the top so that this can sit flush. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's not a biggie. That's doable. You don't need to remove the forward face. Though it probably looks wrong. Let's just have a look what they've done on their instructions. Yeah, you can see they've removed, they don't tell you this, but you can see they've removed the profile because it's not sat on top. I think they've also removed the front face. And for me, that's not quite looking right like that. Let's just get that out of the way so the camera focuses where I want. Because you've got a gap, you can see the rivet head, bolt heads, and then you've got this little ridge, this line here, which I think that should be part of the turret. So I think we're going to take the front face off as well. So that becomes a little bit more trickier around these details. So let's have a look at doing that cleanup. Okay, so I thought I'd take you through the whole cleanup process for this because there's some interesting little bits. First thing we're going to do, and I'm using some old side cutters for this, is we've already cleaned this up. So once you've got rid of your nubs from your sprue gates, what we're going to do is we're just going to remove these little tabs here. So they're designed to keep the gun in place. And what generally happens is they hold it quite tight in. And then when you're rotating it, the paint rubs off and all that sort of stuff. It's easier to just plop them in. So removing that just makes my life easier when you're positioning things. Because if the gun's too tight and you've got all this delicate photo etch on it, you can easily damage it trying to position your guns. So that's the first thing to do. So that is the base element done. Clean it up, get rid of the tabs. Okay, so we can put that to one side because we can't do anything with that until we've put the gun barrels in, which we need to do through the back as we've established. Okay, with the viewfinder openings here, the little wings that go on the side, for those guns that have them, we're just going to trim off as close as we can the nubs, and there's a little bit of mold seam that goes around the edge there. We need to clean that off as well. I think we're fairly good there now. And because it's spherical, I like to do it with a sponge. You can do it with a flat. So I'm using a 400 sponge here, and we're just going to take down the nub area only. So I'm not doing the whole thing. And what that will do, because we're using a sponge, when I apply pressure, it's changing shape and it's rounding off the nub, and it will slowly blend it in. So there you go, you can see that that nub has gone. So we'll do that on both of them where we've got the connection point on the curve. Okay, nice and quick. And then I'm going to go in with a flat to take the seam off. So this is a 600, and we're just going to go around and make sure there's no overhanging seam ahead of gluing these into position. Okay, that all looks good. There's a little bit of mold seam along this edge here, so we need to get rid of that. It'll look dreadful under paint. Just blend that in. Under paint, sanding at 600, you won't really see it. You won't see the witness of the sanding is what I'm trying to say. So all around this top edge there's a little mold seam. So I didn't pay much attention when we took it off, but it's probably slide molded by the looks of it. Okay, now where we did that sanding with the 400 grit, I want to just tidy that up a bit. So I'm going to go in with a 1000 grit and just do the whole of that curve and just take down any roughness from the original sanding we did, and just make sure that's all blended in. So there we go, that's that one done. I'll do the seams of this one off camera and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so we've got these little bits that stick out of here that we're going to have to put on, and they've got a little bit of mould seam on, so they have a mounting pin, which that should fit okay once we've cleaned up the turret top. So whilst there's a bit of seam, I'm going to hold the sprue gate that we've cut off, and we're just going to clean that. So I'm going to use one of my seam cleaners for that. You can use the back of a knife or anything, or a little bit of spare nickel photo etch, not the brass stuff because it bends. And we'll just take that seam off. That's all the cleaning required for the sides. And then we can now remove the sprue gate off the top there, and we just need to go in with a 600 and level the top and take away the witness of removing the sprue gate. Make sure it's nice and flat and you've not put any angles on or anything like that. That's all good. So that is now ready to be installed, so I think we're happy with that. Okay, turret top now, so let's have a look at the cleanup of this. It's going to be the same on all three. We do have some location points for drilling out, so one of them has a couple of items that go on the back here, so we do need to drill those out on one of them. So we might do it on this one just for fullness. So I'm using a 600 grit just to take down where we had that nub. That gives it nice and smooth. I'm going to do the back here because then I run my finger over it. It feels all rough when it's come out of the mould. So make that nice, and where you've got a sprue gate you've often got a seam. So always look out for gentle seams that aren't easy to see unless you put your magnifying glasses on, but you suddenly see it as soon as you put the paint on. You go, oh, what's that huge horrid lump mass there? So the rest of it is pretty good. We've got these location points here which we need to tidy up because there's a little bit, you can probably just see there's a little bit of a lip on them. I'm just going to get those out of shot. It messes with the autofocus. So we need to take those off. Again, I'm going to use my a scraping tool. So let me just find a nice pointy one. That'll do. So again, you can use the back of a number 11 blade or something is good. That's what I used to do before I found these. They don't make these anymore, so which is a real shame because they're great. One of the best tools I ever bought, actually. I use them a lot. So this plastic's a little bit statically charged and it's picking up all sorts of hairs and stuff. I'm not going to worry about that because before we prime it, we're going to give it a little clean. So by removing the seam here, we're making sure that we get a nice tight fit and that there's no gaps. And you know, if you don't clean it up, it'd be difficult to get the part straight and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so we're going to make this the gun that sits at the front that needs to have a flat panel. And what I don't know until I remove this is whether this part in the middle here is level with this part here on the outer. If it is, then all we've got to do is smooth it off. I say all, we've got rivet detail all the way around, which I don't want to lose. So we'll deal with that in a minute. First of all, we're going to deal with these raised areas here around the outside of the gun where the blast bags are attached. So in real life, the blast bags have a ring on the inside of the canvas which bolts onto there. So removing this, as we've already seen, will make the blast bags sit properly. So I'm using chisel. I've also got a micro chisel here we're going to be using as well. So I should perhaps tell you the widths of these. This one is 3mm wide and this one is 1.5. Okay, so we can go in with the 3 first, and on the outside that's nice and easy. So let's see if we can get you a little closer. There we go. So just go in at the top, nice and controlled. Small movements gives you control rather than trying to push it and take it all off in one. Actually probably need to sharpen my chisels by the feel of it. I'm trying to be very careful of the bolt head, so I'm going in with my narrower one. Oh, that chisel's definitely sharper. And we'll just level that down. So now we've taken most of that off, we can just go over that with a 400 grit and smooth it down. Just going to put my fingernail over that bolt head that I don't want to lose, rivet head. Okay, and then with an 800 grit, I'm just going to go and make sure it's nice and smooth. So that should look alright under paint, and of course we're going to have it covered by the blast bag in the main anyway. But the main trick is to make sure we've not got any gouges from the chisel. Right, doing this front face, it's tricky because of this area here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a stop in. So using my chisel, I'm going to rest my chisel on the on its corner on this little ridge here. That's my stop line, and I'm just going to cut across. So that will naturally make the chisel feel like it wants to stop as we get closer to it. So if I put this down, I can go in from this side and just quickly take that off. And then I can follow that with my chisel. I'm going to use my smaller one because it's just that bit sharper. Just follow that around. There we go. Now you'll see as I mean you can't feel it, but as I follow that up, the chisel naturally comes to a stop where I cut that little line in. I'm just going around again and making sure it's nice and flush with the surface of the front of the turret there. Okay. So this last little bit here, we're going to very carefully do with our chisel. I'm going to just cut a little stop in at the end. So just make sure I'm still on camera. So I'm going to cut a stop in at the edge of the ring there, where this naturally comes to an end, and that'll hopefully just help. So I'm resting the chisel on my finger because it gives me a little bit more control. So because I'm now pressing on this, I've got lots of control right at the tip of the chisel. So if I was just holding it like this, the chisel can wander. So very gently just pushing that up, taking that back. I'm not going to want to get in here with anything in terms of sanding, so this work all has to be done with the chisel. There we go, that's looking good. And then I'm just going to follow it around. Didn't quite get it flush at this corner. I'm aware I didn't get it flush at the corner. Okay, so that's the first one off. So we'll do exactly the same process on this one. So I'm going to cut my stop in. Put those ones in as well at the same time. Now it's easier to take this off the top first, so just go in on one of the edges, break through, level it. Once you're flush with the top of the turret, it's nice and easy, you can just follow your line. And then we can come down to the bottom, like so. And you can see I'm only using a fraction of the blade. We trim it down. Come back to the top. I won't show you the third one because it's pretty much the same, but you're getting the idea of what we're doing now. If you don't have chisels for modelling and you're into sort of accuracy and you want to modify things, then I certainly recommend you get some chisels. These are woodworking chisels, and the advantage of them over a number of the modelling chisels you can get is the heel. It's quite shallow, whereas a lot of the modelling ones are quite steep and actually makes them more difficult to control. So generally I find that the woodworking sort of carver's chisels, these are flexi-cut, made in the US. I think these are the best chisels that money can buy personally. and I would recommend you go that route rather than dedicated modelling tool, which isn't as good and almost as expensive. So this isn't perfectly flush. We are going to have to tidy this up. We're just doing the majority of the heavy lifting here. Okay, so that's that one done. I'm going to do this one off camera and then I'll come back to you when we do the next bit of tidy up on that. Right, we're ready to clean this up, and sometimes you're presented with something that none of your tools are really fit for purpose to do. So we've got to do some leveling work here just to smooth everything off. And you know, this is the narrowest sander I've got, and I've got different grits in this, but nothing narrower. So sometimes you just have to modify it to do what you need to do, and don't be afraid of, you know, hacking your sanding tools about, because they're relatively cheap at the end of the day. So I've narrowed this down so that I can sand without risk of hitting these 2 points here. So using this edge to keep me nice and straight. You can see that's nice and flat now. I can revert to the wider bit so that I can cover the area more quickly for these ends here. There we go, that's good. Let's make sure that's nice and flat. Okay, so that is looking good now, and just going to test fit. Yeah, that fits nice and tightly around that one. Nice and tightly around that one. And nice and tightly around that one. So that is all good. Let's just drill these holes out. So as always, Trumpeter give you no indication of what size drill you should be using. So I generally use the size of the hole they give us as a guide to what size drill bit we should be using. So this is a pretty big one, so I'm going to go with 1.5 and see how that fits. Oh no, smaller than that. So let's go to 1. Yeah, 1 millimeter. So let's get this done using my trusty X-Acto drill that I've been using since I was 15. So in August this will have had 40 years of use and it's still going strong. Okay, so we can just run the drill back through. Make sure it's all nice and clear. Get rid of the little burrs. Okay, so that's our hole. So this is turning this into B turret now, which is two of the bases need these holes drilling out as well. These will be mounting those spare gun barrels for secondary or anti-aircraft armaments. So I'm using a 0.5 drill, which seemed to be about the right size, but it's quite a thick bit of plastic we've got to drill through, so being careful not to break my blade, my bit I should say. So two of these bases need holes drilling here. The diameter of the holes is about 0.5 of a millimeter. I often find when you're using these very delicate thin drill bits and you've got a big drilling task to do, because that's quite thick, it's better to use a power drill. So I've got it on its slowest setting, so we're not going to have problems with melting plastic. So we'll just go in nice and carefully, let the drill bit do the work. If I was doing this manually, I'd be putting a lot more pressure on it and much more risk of breaking the drill bit. So whilst I've got the drill going, I might as well do another one, and then that's both of them done. Okay, we can glue these little parts in now. So I'm going to start with these little bits that go in here. I'm not quite sure what they are, to be honest. But that goes in nice and tightly. Let me put the other side in. Yeah. So I can use good old capillary action to glue them into place. And then we can mount these. Okay, so just hold that into place. Okay, that looks pretty cool. Starting to look like a gun, is it not? Now there was some fluffy debris around the top of this after filing, so I'm just going to use the glue just to melt any fine bits away and crisp them up anything we need to. So that is the basics of this gun done. I'm going to clean up the other two turrets, and then I'll come back to you when we look at sorting out Anton turret and not having these attached, because we've now turned this into turret B because we've drilled the holes in. So the good news is this is proud of this, and the rest of it is flush. I've done a roughing out on this side, so I'm just going to divide it up into sections. That makes it easier to do a controlled removal of quite a lot of surface detail here. And I've just resharpened my my chisel with a whetstone, so we're good to go. So just by putting these little stops in, it allows me to just do a small section at a time. So the correct way of using a chisel, as I understand it, is that this surface is what should be down on the face. So I tend to start off like that, but as we get towards the end, you'll see me flip the chisel over, and I do that because I find I get a more controlled cut right on the surface level. So if I go in now, I can use the flat of the top of the chisel just to keep me level with the surface that I'm trying to actually get down to. And then I'll go back over to using it properly. So I'm just going around gradually, a little bit at a time. You can see I use a little rocking action. That allows me to cut in sort of micro amounts, and then I'm going to carefully, I mean, if we remove a rivet head or something, we can replace it, but I am trying not to. So this thinner area on the front and back is much easier to remove. You see, I just there we go. And that's starting to get flush now, so that's good. Oops. Just take that down. Well, we have to be careful not to dinge this. We don't want to be filling it really. We don't want to create work. Right, last little bit. There we go. Oops. Yeah, we took a rivet head off there. Put that back on later. Right, so we're relatively flat there now. So next job is some very light wet and dry.